Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Congress last night with a plea for continued American support in Ukraine's ongoing defense against its invasion by Russia. Though President Biden has pledged unwavering support for Ukraine, a growing number of House Republicans have expressed hostility to more support for Ukraine and the possibility of a forever war. Is that a real concern? How much of the burden should Americans be willing to shoulder? Joining me to discuss it is FRC's Executive Vice President, retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who spent the last 4 years of his 36-year military career serving as Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He was also one of the original members of U.S. Army's Delta Force. General, good to see you today.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Joseph.
Now, yesterday on the program, we discussed the fact that you believe the U.S. should be supporting Ukraine, but that the European nations should be doing more. President Zelensky came to town very clearly trying to shore up his support from the U.S. Do you think it worked?
Well, we don't know what went on behind closed doors, but I am sure that by the statements that our president made, that he is committed to supporting Ukraine. Does that mean he's willing to go, the distance? We don't know yet because we don't know what the future holds. But I think he's committed to supporting the Ukrainians, and we're going to continue to provide them with military materiel as well as humanitarian aid.
Now, Republican leader Mitch McConnell has said that winning the war in Ukraine is the top Republican priority. Yesterday, however, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republican in the House, he said that he supports Ukraine but doesn't support a blank check. Now, given the omnibus bill that's currently being passed, expected to be passed in the morning, that'd be $100 billion for Ukraine so far. Do you think we have a blank check for Ukraine?
Well, first of all, I think that what has been spent thus far is about 60 billion. And by the way, if you reflect back on a couple of years ago, we left $83 billion worth of materiel, brand new, state-of-the-art military machinery and weapons and so forth. We left that in the hands of the Taliban, our enemies. And we've given the Ukrainians about 60 billion, and we're about to give them another 45 billion. So I don't know whether we could call it a blank check or not. Kevin McCarthy certainly sounded very serious about this. But what I do know is, as we talked yesterday, the Europeans have got to come to the table here with more than what they provided so far. Now, several of those European countries are actually giving an amount that is greater than the GPT ratio that we're giving. It's actually greater of a few of those, but the others, Germany especially, really needs to get engaged here and provide more money and more material to the Ukrainians so that America is not carrying this alone.
Now, any opposition in Washington, D.C. to funding this war is coming from the Republican Party. And certainly that is not universal within the Republican Party, but all the opposition is in the Republican Party. And the Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives in the next session. Now, President Zelensky is certainly aware of this opposition. One of the arguments that he made yesterday was the idea that it's important for Ukraine to win as a way of defeating Iran, who is providing drones to Russia. And he tried to loop this in with the broader war on terror. Let's play clip 8.
Russia found an ally in this genocidal policy, Iran. Iranian deadly drones sent to Russia in hundreds became a threat to our critical infrastructure. That is how one terrorist has found the other. It is just a matter of time when they will strike against your other allies if we do not stop them now.
General, do you think it's wise to see this conflict in Ukraine as part of a broader war on terror?
No, I don't buy his argument there. Listen, Iran as a standalone entity, Iran is a huge threat to America and to the rest of the free world. So there's no question about that. And Iran is providing material to the Russians, particularly drones, where they have very good technology. But I also don't think that we should, for 1 minute, think that if we defeat the Russians on the battlefield there, and I say we, meaning the Ukrainians with our support, that we have therefore defeated Iran in some way. I don't see it that way. Iran is going to be a standalone threat until ultimately we deal with them, and that could be in the battle space, but it could also be that we come in and support some of the insurgent elements that are protesting in the streets as we speak in Tehran.
And may the revolutionaries there in Iran have success. Another question I want to ask you about this is the amount and the kinds of support we are willing to provide. When we talked yesterday about the Patriot missile system that we are about to provide to Ukraine as part of the most recent round of aid. However, President Biden has said he will not grant their request for long-range weapons. Help us understand why there are some weapons, some kinds of support we would provide, but specifically not long-range weapons.
I think this has been a flawed logic from the very beginning, and especially when you think back of Jen Psaki telling us repeatedly that the MiG-29s were offensive weapons, that we weren't going to give them the MiG-29s because they were offensive weapons and they would be escalatory. And you stop and think about it. Here's a country that's fighting for its life. All you have to do is watch TV just for a few minutes and look at the destruction that has taken place there. These people are fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their future. They're fighting for their families, and we are calling these weapons offensive weapons. Listen, when you're fighting the way the Ukrainians are for everything, it's all on the table. It's all or nothing. It's hard for me to understand the logic behind calling these weapons offensive weapons. They're not going to fire on Moscow. They are trying to get the Russians out of the Ukraine and retake the land that when they became a sovereign country was part of their nation. And now the Russians are occupying the Crimea and the eastern part of the Ukraine.
I got to cut you off. We are out of time. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you.